There are several stances in martial arts that I'd like you to learn. Now, when you practice stances in karate, kung fu, and any martial style, it's very important that you realize these stances are never really seen when fighting unless you really analyze what a fighter does and how they deliver a punch, a strike, a block, evasive maneuver. Then and only then will you see these stances in dynamic motion. So the first one I want to talk about is, it's a rather long one, it's called a bow stance, and you never really see it like this because in reality what we're doing is when we emphasize standing in a particular pose or posture, we are just reminding our subconscious to move in a certain way and to become stronger in that particular stance. So here's stance number one, bow stance. Stance number two, monkey stance. Now, monkey stance is a stance where you stand with your knees bent, around shoulder width apart, a little bit wider actually, shoulder width apart. It's a little bit like a horse stance, but it's at an angle. I don't know if you can pick it up, but it's very easy to move around and bounce around from this stance. The next one we're going to look at is mantis stance. Now here, this is a very good evasive stance, and it's a little bit like the karate back stance, which is again another stance that I'd like you to learn. So you could practice these ones, stand in this position for as long as you can, and build up your stamina, your strength in back stance and in mantis stance. Cat stance is seen throughout the martial arts, and it's a very good stance for kicking from. So if you need to retreat and launch a kick, cat stance is the perfect position to do that. And all you really need to do is to drag your foot back and come onto the ball of your foot to raise and kick your opponent. So the leg can come up quite easily from a cat stance. If you're stronger, you may even able to get your leg up from back stance and launch a kick. But that does take a lot of time, and that does take practice. Now, the most common and popular stance that you'll see throughout the martial world is horse stance, or horse riding stance as I call it. In Japanese it's called kibadechi. And your knees should be parallel and all the joints aligned, unless you've got funny knees like me which come out, and this is the best I can do, but I can get very low. My legs are very strong. So ergonomics needs to come into play in modern martial arts, because we need to understand that everyone is built differently, and somewhere along the line the ancient masters knew this, but it got lost and everyone had to do things one way, otherwise it wasn't right. So ergonomics comes into play in martial arts, and the old world masters would always tailor everything that they taught towards what was actually going on with the student physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually even. Now, another stance you might see for my Tai Chi people is a Wu Chi stance, which is, it's kind of like the stance that you begin rise and sink from if you're doing Tai Chi for health, for wellness, for spirituality. You know, Wu Chi stance is a good stance to be in, and really appreciate that position. For me, it reminds me of mountain pose, the legs straight, from yoga. Final stance, scissors stance. Rather odd, but very useful to be able to get into, to evade attacks and to counter in many different ways. It's a very good position to launch a kick into your enemy and launch a very devastating kick, I might add, into your enemy who's coming in very strong, very forceful. But you can see in the background some beautiful scenery. There's a lake right at the back there, and some beautiful palm trees. And I love to practice everything I do in nature. You know, if I train myself and it's a good day, even if it's raining and not too heavily and I have suitable gear, I'll go out and practice my forms, taolus, katas, etc. in the arms of nature. And I suggest you do the same. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up, make sure you subscribe and share the video with anyone who likes martial